Hello there. I wanted to share a few reflections on solitude, the importance of it, and some of the reasons why it happens, at least from my own experience, and really from accounts of a lot of other people, authors, books, resources, spiritual teachers that really describe the importance of solitude on the spiritual journey. And even just the process of inner transformation and behavior change, and really just getting to the point where we can understand ourselves on a deeper level, really requires this spaciousness and silence away from the usual external environment that is continuously impressing on us, as well as people and their projections. And so, over the past 15 years or so, solitude has really been essential to my journey of transformation. Of course, it doesn't start like that. It feels very lonely, very isolating. Had me in very, very dark places, but really without the usual things demanding my attention, pulling me into different stimulus, which of course then triggers thoughts, feelings, emotions based on my perception and programming, conditioning. I'm then reacting. Without any of that, I was forced to confront myself. And I was one of those people, I would do anything in order to distract myself, to avoid myself, to really avoid sitting with my emotions. And solitude really removes um, these escape routes, perhaps call them that, because I'm looking to escape from myself, from my inner world. And instead of acknowledging my own presence, the focus was always outwards. And so there was this redirection of my focus inwards. So these things internally really have to be seen. And of course, they require my full attention. And I remember this may have been like 2013, 2014, when I was really a year and a half into really committing to this path. Um, I would after work. I used to live in East London in Dalston, and I would just spend hours and hours on my own, perhaps walking the streets of London at very like unsocial hours. Um, and it was challenging, and it takes time to really build that trust, that relationship, and that awareness of myself to begin being comfortable in my own skin with my own being. Um, and so, if you're feeling this pull towards spending time on your own, moving beyond external noises, or there's less desire to be around people, to be in big crowds, you're almost feeling like this lone solitary soldier in your own head, in the expanse of your own thoughts. You become separated from the usual pace, the usual rhythm of this world. No, there is nothing wrong with you. And although everything out there can suggest there is something wrong with you, if you're swimming upstream and you're out of the status quo, it can really feel um, quite paralyzing, quite debilitating. But there is something to discover beyond the noise of this world. The truest parts of yourself lie underneath all of that stuff that we've accumulated. And so many people see isolation as something to be feared, something to escape from. But what if solitude was not this curse to keep you from connecting with everybody in the world, but actually a gift, a calling towards really understanding yourself on this deeper level. And of course, the mind, which is accustomed to external stimulation, um, will resist the silence, and this can be very, very challenging. There's this sense of missing out. There's this sense of feeling isolated and abandoned, and like this is it. And I really felt this suffering of loneliness. I really wanted to connect with people who were able to talk about these things that were happening. Um, but when I did, there was judgment, maybe ridicule, and just a genuine not knowing how to really be in the space of someone who's talking about these things. So I didn't um, have those outlets in those time, and even that was a call to go deeper within myself, within my own being. And slowly there was this realization that there is this depth that is willing to be explored that I just was not aware of. And we can consider the process, and I love the analogy of this of refining gold. And Muji, the spiritual teacher, he talks of this, that for something of great value, it must go through a fire, but the fire that we go through, this purification process, is only going to burn off things that are untrue. And so these are the impurities that get burned off, all of the sort of strongholds of personality and identity and attachments and roles and projections, all of this stuff that we've accumulated over the gold that we actually are, needs to be burned away. And the purification, the fire, is the uncomfortable, difficult, challenging period of isolation, solitude, silence, where this purification process is taking place. So the false self burns away. So this true golden essence of yourself can shine through. So transformation really begins in the silence. It doesn't necessarily have to be spiritual per se. This can really be a transformation of your own being. And this is going to be different for everybody. But this space I find so important in the process of transformation, because when we are alone, there are no masks, there's no roles to play. I used to wear many masks in an effort to be liked and to be validated, and eventually these became ingrained not only in me, holding on to these identities and not knowing any different, or knowing that there was another reality underneath these masks, but it also then becomes ingrained into the minds of others. And so this is again where I found it difficult, because when I'm trying to change and trying to be behave in new ways that feel more true to me now, there is the resistance that arises subconsciously in the minds of others, because they have this projection or this memory, these ideas of me in the past. I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to move away from that. I despise that person. I'm trying to change and be more akin to what's going on for me now. But it comes up against a wall. And so this again was very, very challenging, because it meant that it was difficult to spend time with friends and family who are not really willing to meet me on these new levels, not for any fault of their own, but this is just how we are as humans, right? And it's only when we begin to do our own work, shed these layers, become more aware of who we are, can we really then have compassion and empathy and awareness that it can happen to other people, and we treat them in the same way. And so it's really necessary, and it is painful as well. So to be with the presence of my own being was very, very heavy and very challenging. But of course, again, something which I recognize very quickly is that we can't bypass these things. To our very human existence, it needs to be really fully integrated, and so we're balancing both sides of a human life and a spiritual life. So we can't really pretend these things are not there. They were part of my personality, my character, and I did some things which were regretful, shameful, which brought up guilt, and I had to sit in the fire of this, and it was like confronting these things face to face, and without the confrontation, transformation can't occur. It seems like an obvious statement, but growth does not happen in the comfort zone. It requires discomfort. So when we are trying to escape discomfort, this is an act of bypassing. We might push things away and pretend they're not there. And that's something what I was doing all of my life. And so this was the opportunity eventually that I began to see it was an opportunity to really face these things. And without that external stimulation and projection of other people, I could begin hearing my own voice. And especially at the beginning, the early phases, this voice is like a whisper. So it wants to be heard, but it really requires the stillness and silence and no echoes of the external world drowning it out. So I really became aware that there is something that was more knowing of this essence, this thing that is underneath, this whisper, this voice, and this was giving me clarity slowly about what is truly mine versus what's been impressed upon me by the world. And beyond the noise of the mind, solitude really opens up this gateway to something deeper, a connection with our higher self. We can say this is a divine intelligence, and there is this like presence, this eternal silence, awareness, the source of what we truly are that's always there. And I believe this is what connects all of us and everything in our universe, this really powerful and indescribable energy and source presence, and we've become disconnected from it because of our strong attachments to our ideas and roles and the stream of thoughts and the material existence. Yet this thing always exists. It always exists, and it's only when we sort of begin to quieten all of these stories and ideas and projections, the whole of the personality, that we really can become aware of this essence that is always there. And actually, ironically, I began to not feel lonely, but grow to like who I was alone with. Now, this is key. You can never be lonely if you like who you're alone with. You realize you're never actually alone anywhere. There is a continuous dialogue with the universe if you wish to engage in it. And I began to like myself more. I began to love myself more underneath all of those things, which it sounds maybe too out there to say they were an illusion, because this is very much part of my reality, my existence. But once there is this awareness of what was underneath, and we start living from this space of presence, then on one hand, those things are now an illusion. I'm only holding on to them in my mind. And so now this obviously requires us to do this ourselves. Point being, and the whole point of the video is, if you are pulled into silence and solitude, don't see this as something wrong, like there's something there's a problem or an issue. So don't rush to fill the silence or avoid it. Really allow yourself to be in it and embrace it. It can be a really sacred space. If there is this seed that is just germinating, it requires that nourishing and fertile environment of stillness and of silence for you to then nurture it with your presence and your love. It doesn't need to be uprooted or covered over with different weeds and chemicals and poisons. If we're following on that analogy from the external world, you're being birthed in this space. So allow yourself to really be still and listen to what comes up, and perhaps we come to this realization that everything that we already need is within us. So it's not about accumulating more, it's about letting go of the things that are not actually true. So what is true can actually be expressed as naturally as possible. I hope that's been helpful. I plan to continue sharing some more reflections as we go on. We'd love to hear your comments if you've made it this far as well. Lots of love. Peace.